Hello, my name is Phil and I live in Colorado. I'm a student of Joe Birkenbein, an instructor from Steamboat Springs, and I'll give you a little history on how that happened. Several years ago, I realized I wasn't getting any younger and I had a yen to fly, so I started with an instructor at a local flight school, and before it was over, I ended up buying this Cirrus and was still receiving instruction to learn how to fly. And the school shut down, so left me without an instructor. And I scrambled around and I called Joe, and he came down and really helped me out a whole bunch. Got me got me up to speed, got me my first solo and cross-country flights, and finally got me going for my check rides where I was able to get my private pilot's license. Having the plane has opened my wife and I's life up to lots of things. For instance, we have a small business interest in a weekend getaway of sorts in a nearby state that takes 8 hours to drive there, and we can fly it in 2. So where we could only get up there once or twice a year before, now we can go up every 4 to 6 weeks and spend the weekend there. I just returned, we just returned, my wife and I just returned from a 4,500 mile cross country where we went down into South Texas to the panhandle of Florida and more or less up the east coast and around, and came back in about 8 or 9 days. We could have done it in far less than that, but we spent a few days with family visiting while we were there. And those are things we're allowed to do that we couldn't do before. And I just want to recommend Joe as an instructor, that he had patience with me. I'm not a young man and probably don't learn as easily as younger people do, but he had patience with me and instructed. And one thing I noticed about Joe compared to my former instructor was that safety was definitely on the top of his list. Not saying the other instructor was unsafe, but I felt that Joe was far more oriented towards safety and really schooled me strongly in mountain flying, and I believe that's, living in Steamboat Springs, that's one of his fortes is the mountain flying aspect. And right now I'm still using Joe, even though I've had my private pilot for several years now. I'm using Joe for my biennial flight reviews. I'm using him also as I've worked towards an instrument rating. I've held off, but I'm working towards an instrument rating and still use Joe, and I can't recommend him more highly. He's a safe, courteous, and competent instructor.